Hi Flosstube, my name's Jody and I'm Trixie Tricycle here on YouTube and also on Instagram. And today is not a normal Flosstube episode. I have some news, and it's a project that I've been working on since about June or July of this year, sort of from concept to now very close to execution. So in order to kind of give you some context behind it, I have to go back to a long time ago. Bear with me. There's a method to my madness. So some of you who are from the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle area, may know that in the late 1800s, most of Seattle burned to the ground. It was called the Great Seattle Fire of 1889. And as a result, a few things happened. One of the reasons why they were unsuccessful in extinguishing that fire were due to construction materials and due to the inadequacy of the water supply, and also the fact that there was no fire department with any kind of organization. So 4 months after the fire, Seattle Fire Department was established, and it set into motion the process of developing a more adequate water supply and distribution system of the water throughout the city of Seattle and through the greater King County area, which is the county in Washington state where the city of Seattle sits. So I live just a little bit outside of Seattle, just south of Seattle. So we have a really unique source of water for drinking and for domestic use in the Pacific Northwest. And it's one of only 5, where I am, is only one of 5 watersheds that provide domestic drinking water. A watershed is essentially it's a catchment, or in some cases it's the headwaters of a particular river. But it's essentially where, in our particular case, it's in the Cedar River watershed is in the Cascade Mountains, which is just east of Seattle, and pretty much divides the eastern and western parts of Washington state. But not too far from here, about 45 minutes outside of the city of Seattle, is the Cedar River watershed. So that's the catchment where all of the water for about 1.4 million people in the city of Seattle that's where it starts. So again, the Great Fire started the process for the city of Seattle to acquire the property and the land around the Cedar River watershed. Now, Seattle Public Utilities owns about 90,000 acres that surround that Cedar River watershed catchment. And it is a pretty much untouched wilderness at this point. There are some tribal rights. So there are some indigenous tribes to that area who still use the watershed to fish and to there's some limited hunting, again, exclusively to the local tribes, but it's not a recreational area. I couldn't go in there and just camp, or it's completely blocked off, and that's just to protect it from outside use, and so it protects the water supply. They don't have to use a lot of artificial filtration to clean the water. And if I grew up in North Seattle, which is another Tolt River watershed, which is just kind of the same type of system, just a little further north. The drinking water at my parents' house, they still live there. The drinking water at my parents' house is so good. Like, you can drink it right out of the tap and it just tastes amazing, and you don't have to filter it, and I've always thought it was pretty great. And I never realized how fortunate I was until I moved different parts of the country later on. It's not like that everywhere. You just kind of take it for granted. I live right at the very end of the Cedar River. So a good portion of the water that comes from the watershed travels downstream, and it goes through a dam and a water treatment facility where they add a little bit of fluoride, a little bit of chlorination to it just to take out some of the bacterial, and then it travels further down through these really cool old wooden massive conduits, these great big pipes that are wood lined, and those wood conduit transmission lines for all the water they're still in use, and they're still pretty good even after 100 years, which is kind of impressive. And they're in the process, the city of Seattle is kind of in the process of upgrading those over time, but a portion of the river then just kind of continues on without, it's just above ground, and it's used for salmon. Salmon still spawn. It's still that portion of it is a recreational river because it's downstream from the catchment for the water, the reservoir. And the end of that portion of the Cedar River runs right through the city where I live, and I can actually see the terminus of the Cedar River from my house. So it goes right into Lake Washington, which is sort of a big lake, big body of water that's right here. So, what does this have to do with cross stitch? So last July, I had been thinking about this for a while. When I started stitching in 2020, and if you've watched any of my Flosstube videos, you know how much I love linen. It's kind of a problem. But I started thinking that maybe I would like to try dyeing fabric. And so at first I just sort of, tried out a little bit, tried a few pieces, decided if I wanted to do it. But with the support and enabling and encouragement of not only my family, but also some really good cross-stitch friends, that kind of progressed. So over the last few months, I have been thinking and testing and dyeing and honing and tracking and coming up with a process that I was satisfied with to come up with some colors and to come up with a business concept that would not only reflect how much I love stitching, but also reflect how much I love the natural resources that we have at our disposal and how grateful I am that I live in such a beautiful part of the world. So when I started thinking about what I wanted to call this little company, it didn't take me very long to make a decision around wanting to recognize the fact that the Cedar River watershed is what provides all of the water that's necessary for me to dye linen. And so my company is called Cedar River Linen and Design. We'll talk about the design part later. This video is just for the linen. But when you start a business, you kind of have to sort of come up with a business name, and you have to get all the licenses, and you have to do all the things and the permits. And so it's going to take a few weeks before the website is live, but I wanted to announce this, that it's going to be coming, and to share a few of the colors that I will be offering. To begin with, it's going to be a really limited palette. I am not, the colors are going to be mostly focused on neutral tones and some more vivid colors, but that are still kind of in that neutral plane. There are so many amazingly talented linen dyers out there already in our cross-stitch community that come up with and have beautiful, brightly colored, very modeled, variegated, and that's not what I'm doing right now. I am limiting myself to sort of more smooth textured, not quite as much variegation, even though there is variation in the linen itself. But I really wanted to start out by coming up with colors that I could replicate. And so that's another piece of why it's taken me a few months to really kind of lock in some of those colors. As you know, I'm sure, it's every time you order linen, even if you're ordering the exact same color or thread count that you've purchased in the past, there may be variations in the dye. There may be variations in the dye lot. There are so many things that contribute to variety in linen, and that's, I think, what makes it beautiful. It also makes it challenging as someone who is sort of dipping their toe into the dyeing process, because you want to make sure that the products that you're offering are consistent, or as consistent as possible. So, over time, some of these colors may change, but in the interim, I'm trying really hard to sort of keep them as consistent as possible. So what I'm going to show you today is kind of a representation. Again, the other piece of this is that showing things on camera is very subjective. It depends on your screen, depends on the color settings that you've got your screen set up with. My camera is 10 years old, so it's not going to be super accurate, but I have tried to make it as accurate as possible. But just like, I'm going to throw in a million caveats, and then all of my friends right now are just screaming at me to just show the linen. Just show it. Show the linen. So, without further ado, here are some of the colors that I have come up with. And the names, again, are kind of a little bit of an homage to environmental things that I see around here every single day, things that were shaped by the environment, things that were shaped by the natural elements that I see every day, etc. So, this is one of the first colors, and the linen that I'm going to show you is, it's going to be a variety of thread counts. It's not going to be all the same thread count, but I do have, and we'll be offering, when the site goes live, I'll be offering 18 and 20 count Aida, and I'll be offering 28, 32, 36, 40, 46, and 56 count linen, all of which I have bulk in stock. We'll talk about that later. So here's one. This is 40 count, and this color is called Tephra. And in person, this color is kind of like a toasted coconut color, maybe. The word Tephra, it's essentially volcanic ash. So anything that comes out of a volcano, and keep in mind that, again, we live within driving distance of, Mount St. Helens is in Washington State. We've got Mount Rainier, again, Mount Baker. They're all part of the Pacific Rim. And so a lot of what I see around me has been directly shaped by volcanic activity. And I'm kind of a volcano geek a little bit, I guess. But, in 1980, when I was 10 years old, Mount St. Helens erupted, and it covered the entire state with volcanic ash. And I just remember kind of the color of it and the texture of it, and it just was kind of on everything. But it ended up, like, if you look at photos now of Mount St. Helens and the area where a lot of that destruction happened around Spirit Lake, it's beautiful. I mean, like, it's come back in a lot of places, and the ability of sort of these places to restore themselves is kind of remarkable. But a lot of the soil that we have around here, and the ability for it to be filtered, the water to be filtered through those soils, it shapes what we have. So it's one of the big things that helps out with the quality of the water that we have. So anyway, this is Tephra. And you can see a little bit, there's a little bit of modeling in here. I'm trying, it's not, it is showing pretty accurately. So again, I don't want this to be just solid color, right? You can get good yarn dyed fabrics from a number of different places where it's all exactly the same color, but it's not going to be tremendously variegated. So this is tephra. And I'll show some of these together so that you can kind of see the contrast. This is the lightest color that I have right now. This is a very light, neutral, it's kind of a, I guess it's kind of an ecru color, except for that it's a little bit more, it's a little more of a cool tone. I think of ecru as like a kind of a yellow. This is definitely more in the cool tones, but it's not, doesn't have any blue in it. It's just a good neutral light color. And this is called albarium. And albarium is actually a form, it's a sort of traditional technique of plastering. It's kind of like a white stucco. It uses limestone and some other natural stone elements. So when you think about like the kind of neutral, sort of almost like a putty white from a plaster, that's what color this is. So that, next to tephra, you can kind of see the different tone. So tephra is a little warmer, and albarium is definitely just a cool, neutral, lighter. And this is kind of in the middle of the two. So this is called Overcast. And again, not a lot of modeling, just a little bit of variation in person. You can kind of see it. And if I put that in between the previous two, those are the three lightest colors. So, and again, one of the reasons why, like, I've really been trying to, and I know everybody understands that thread counts, if you have a 28 count linen, it's going to more readily absorb the molecules of dye. The color molecules are going to be more readily absorbed into the fabric. When you have a 46 count, because the weave is so tight, it's much harder for the dye to actually get into in between the threads, in between the fibers of the linen. And so sometimes you'll see that a 28 count, exact same color as a 46 count, but the 46 is going to be much lighter. I'm okay with that. I think everybody that stitches knows that, but I've also tried, one of the things I've been trying is to try and maybe get those two thread counts to be slightly closer in shade, and that may involve more work, slightly different, you know, of course all of our processes are kind of proprietary. Your secrets. But I have been trying to make the colors as consistent as possible between each of those thread counts. And I've been successful with a few of the colors. Some of them I'm still working on, so I don't think it's going to be, it's not going to stop me from releasing them or from offering them, but that's kind of been one of my goals. I'm having fun with it, so. So, like I said, some of these colors are named with local elements in mind, and one of the things that we've got in abundance here are cedar trees. And I've always loved the color of red cedar bark, especially when it's sunny. And so this is my attempt at red cedar. So the camera's going to blow it out a little bit, and it's going to be really hard. I don't think I can get it any further away, but this is just a nice red cedar, kind of a rust red color. It's not pink. But you can see that there's a little bit of modeling in there. So some variation on the color, but it's not just all kind of monochromatic. It does have some movement to it. So as an example, the one in the front is 46 count or 36 count, and this is the one behind it is 40 count. So pretty close. So 40 count, and this one is a little bit more modeled, and that just has to do with the way that I processed it. Kind of playing around with it. But the shade is close. So 36 count, 40 count. And that color is called red cedar. So if you watched my last video, you saw me, in fact they're behind me, I had been playing around with green. And this was really what I was after. I was trying to get a shade of green that really gave me vibes of being out in the woods. So this color is arboreal. And it just reminds me of, and this is a 40 count, it just reminds me of, like from a distance when you look at one of the hillsides here, you know, they call it the evergreen state. So you see a whole bunch of different, even this time of year, it's still really green here. And so that is that. And I'm really proud of this color. This took so much time. This took a ton of time to truly lock in and to get to this point. So I'm pretty happy with it. So will there be Ada? Yes, there will be Ada. So here are a few, again, this is Overcast, Tephra, and Arboreal, and that's 20 count. So if you look at them next to the linen, so this is the linen, this is the Ada, these are both Overcast. This is Tephra. So this is the Ada. This is the linen. And this is Arboreal. This is the Ada. And then this is the linen. And this is, all of these are 20 count Ada. But I also have 18 count. So, those are the colors. So those aren't all of the colors that we're going to preview when we launch, but I just kind of wanted to give you a few. So the site's going to go live for ordering in 2 weeks on Friday, December 16th. Again, the website is cedarriverlinen.com. And right now you can go to that page and you can enter your email, and that just it will give you an opportunity for me to email you with any shop updates that we might have, and I'll occasionally send out maybe a newsletter, but but I'm not going to flood your email box with spam. You know, I just am not going to send out that many emails. One, I don't have time. The others, that's not why I want to collect your emails. Really, it's just for the next couple of weeks so that you can be updated and I can get a general idea of the level of interest that people may have in this. That's the big question mark. You know, I don't know what people are going to, I know there's so many people out there that dye beautiful linen, and so I've really been sort of, you know, operating in a little bit of a vacuum when it comes to how much I should prepare in terms of inventory, and I've kind of gone back and forth, like, do I dye a ton of linen and a ton of different thread counts and all the colors and make sure that I've got everything so that I can just ship it out immediately? And I think that what I've settled on is that I'm going to have some in stock in each of the thread counts, but I want to see what ordering looks like. I want to see what colors people are drawn to before I really start using a lot of the bulk stock that I have. So I have plenty at this point of every thread count. I've got lots of 36 and 40 count, but because it has been, there's been a shortage of those linen counts, I don't want to just start randomly dyeing huge numbers, or, you know, I don't want to start dyeing significant yardage and specific colors if people don't want those and they would prefer to have other. So as a result, my estimate for your ordering time to when you should expect it to be shipped is going to be between 2 and 3 weeks at this point. So what that means is that if the shop opens on the 16th of December, it means that it will not arrive in time for Christmas. So I agonized a little. I was like, do I just wait and not launch it until after the holiday, start January 1st or something like that? But we're ready to go. And I think that the one thing that you can do is we'll have, in the shop, we'll have gift cards available. So that if you want to provide that as a gift, you know, for somebody, you can. The gift cards won't expire. And they can be used, you know, at any time for any of the items in the shop going forward. As far as shipping goes, I have, you know, as a result of kind of the, you know, one of the focuses that I have on, and again, this isn't the whole story, but a big piece of what I'm doing is that I would like to draw attention to that natural resource. So the resource that we have of our watershed, and protecting that, and sort of just being cognizant of where water comes from, right? And how we can be mindful of using it. So the process that I use in dyeing my linen, I use as little water as possible. I do a lot of, it takes a lot more work to do low immersion and get a smooth texture, but I think it's worth it. It takes more time, it takes more elbow grease, but again, I think it's worth it. I like the results. But as far as the shipping materials that I'm planning to use, I think it's important for people to know that I'm not going to put linen in plastic bags. So it means that when you get your packages, it's going to come in a box. So this is reusable, recyclable, but when you open the box, you will find your linen wrapped in tissue. So I just don't feel, you know, I know that if that is a huge concern, or people are worried that there may be, you know, water damage or whatever to the linen, I don't believe that that's going to be a huge problem. Fingers crossed. But if there is a problem with the package and if the linen arrives and if it's damaged due to, water, then get in touch with me and let's talk about it. But I think that I think that there are more and more online shops that I have been ordering from that are providing things in paper bag type packaging or in boxes, and people have been mindful of using shipping supplies that can be either reused, recycled, composted, whatever. And so that's going to be, again, it costs a little bit more just from my end of it, but I'm not going to be charging more than what I think is the market average for a fat quarter of hand-dyed linen. So you'll see that when you go onto my website. So as far as shipping, within the United States, shipping on any order over $75 is going to be free. So that means that because this larger box is going to be for any orders over a half yard. So, and I'm only going to be selling in fat quarter, fat half, and full yard increments. So if you order 3 fat quarters, that's going to put you over the $75 order minimum. So you'll get free shipping if you get the big box. For the smaller box, this will likely be a $3 shipping flat rate. Both of them will have free tracking, or every order is going to have tracking. But so this one, if you order, I believe it's 2 fat quarters, they'll fit into this box. And those will, it'll likely be a $3 flat rate shipping charge, but you'll see that as you check out. I would very much like to offer international shipping. That price is going to vary depending on the country that it's being shipped to. So there are certain carriers that will, deliver to Australia. Certain carriers will be a little more efficient at sending to Canada. As far as the UK and then the EU, there are some different rules around that. So to be announced, but my intent is that I will be shipping directly to customers, at least in those countries. And it's my hope that we'll be able to provide, good tracking, and we're going to have to kind of see how it goes. I think that it's worth it, and we'll be small enough that we can hopefully provide that. And we'll just see if we need to make changes, if the shipping ends up turning out to be, too difficult, or we're having difficulty getting it to people safely or in an expedient manner. We'll reevaluate at the time. So each piece that you get will be serged. I'm using a cotton serging thread, so it's not a polyester based. So, eventually it will break down. I really have tried to be as mindful as possible with all of the elements of this. So one last thing, while they last, I will be sending with each of the orders one of these. So this is a little, it's essentially a closet hanger, and it's made of cedar. And this was made by Beth Twist's husband, who has started a small kind of a sub shop affiliated with Heartstring Samplery called The Boardroom. And I showed in my last video that Beth had brought these as a surprise, this little Trixie tricycle. And so that is the Heartstring Samplery Boardroom. And when she brought these to me, I had already been in the sort of, idea brainstorming stage of coming up with what I wanted the shop to look like and the things that I wanted to be able to provide. This, these came from a limb, a big piece of a cedar tree that had fallen on their property. And so he was able to repurpose that. And so we have a whole bunch of them, and they smell like cedar. And cedar is good for, you know, it's good for sort of keeping things out of your closets. Things that like fabric. So you can set it down, it's got a flat edge on it, so you can either sit it into a little linen cabinet or you can hang it. It'll come with a piece of ribbon of varying colors. It'll be a surprise. So again, while supplies last, you'll get that included in with your package. And you'll have an option at checkout. If you don't want one, I don't want to send it because it's not going to be, I just don't want it to be thrown away. So we'll have a little check. It'll be free, but it'll be something that you have to check when you go to checkout that you, yes, would like to have a closet hanger. So bear with me as we go through this process. I'm really excited. I'm also very scared. This is a big deal. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been kind of in on this. There is a small group of people who have known about this and who have given me advice and encouragement and who have kind of literally pushed me off the high dive to get me here. Because I was still like, I don't know, are we ready? We might need to think about this a little more. We might need to consider. And they were like, you need to launch your website. So here we go. The website is live for signing up with your email and getting updates. And then the shop will go live at 9 a.m. Pacific time, like Pacific Coast time on December 16th. So excited about it. So thanks again for watching. And if you have any questions, you can also email me. The email address is info@cedarriverlinen.com. And for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you can also send me a direct message, Trixie Tricycle. So that's it. And I hope you guys are having a great weekend, and I will be updating soon. Bye.